Hey everyone, I'm back. Hope you're all doing good. Today's guest is a very talented artist. She's very active on Instagram where she shares her artwork with the world. I do recommend you guys checking her pieces out because they're so amazing. She's also been hosting webinars and in-person sessions for other people to engage in art as well as sharing her mission with everyone else. I'm so excited to have her on my podcast, and she's Tayyibah Baz. How have you been?
Alhamdulillah, I've been really well. Honestly, I'd say a little bit busy with my creative process at the moment with my painting. Alhamdulillah, it's been going really well though.
I'm so glad to hear that. Alhamdulillah. And thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it. And today's topic is a very interesting one. It's not something that I usually talk about, both online or offline, but it is very important given the time we live in right now. You also happen to be very passionate about this particular matter. So I thought we could have a discussion about it. And yeah, so what are your thoughts on AI? I've seen you talk about this several times on Instagram, and you don't seem to be in favor of it. So could you share your thoughts with myself and the audience, please?
Of course. So, I'd like to give a little bit background first and foremost.
Mm-hmm.
So, when I actually started using AI myself, it was only at the beginning of this year.
Mm-hmm.
Before that, it was like, nah, just seeing it a few times here and there, but then actually using it, I don't even remember the reason why I used it, but I guess I was testing what the features were and everything. And I'll have to be honest, I was kind of influenced with it at the beginning,
Mm-hmm.
but as time went on, I started asking myself these questions. Do we actually have guidelines as Muslims, especially? I
Mm-hmm.
want to leave out the non-Muslims because the non-Muslims even themselves say that they don't even have proper guidelines for it just yet.
Mm-hmm.
There is no regulation for it. And
Mm-hmm.
I thought to myself, what are we doing as Muslims to have that regulation? So that was one of the things that popped up recently.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing was because I'm an artist, this is why AI seems to be something that generally speak about
Mm-hmm.
because it is taking pictures and artwork from other artists and it is basically copying it. It's taking parts of their work and creating it into their own picture. So people think that this is making its own type of style, but in reality, it's actually stealing styles and putting them together. And people tend to get confused with this. So because AI is something, there's a few uses for it actually. One of them is image generation,
Mm-hmm.
video generation, and sorry, generating,
Mm-hmm.
and writing prompts as well. So when you have writing generating as well. So all of these things are the most common ways that AI is used
Mm-hmm.
by the general public. So they wanted to use it as a way that everyone could have access to it. And I even found out the statistics recently that there is more than 800 million users using it every single day.
Wow.
And yeah, subhanAllah, it is huge. And I guess this is more of a reason. You can imagine back in the day when computers first came out,
Mm-hmm.
was there any guidelines at that time for it? So
No.
no, because it was completely new. And because it was completely new, that means there was more of it being misused by people, lying, scams, all of these things, and even the dark web and all these things.
Mm-hmm.
So it's exactly how it is now with in terms of AI.
I'm really surprised that people would actually use AI to steal art. W- I mean, when I think of art, I think of creativity and originality, you know? It's something that you just don't copy other people. You just be creative and do you, basically. But using a but using AI to steal someone else's artwork, that's ridiculous. I mean, it just doesn't click with me. I'm sorry. Um, I'm not saying I don't believe you, but it's sad. Like, why I don't understand why would people steal someone else's artwork like that? it defeats the purpose of being creative, you know?
Absolutely, I definitely agree with you. Because like even before AI even came out, there was even cases that art was already being stolen from people, and where people claim art as their own when reality is it's not even their own art. So it's basically theft. So this is basically a new form of theft, and even when it comes to AI, if let's say we exclude people that are misusing it,
Mm-hmm.
the content of AI itself to generate images, all of these things. Did you actually know that the Godfathers have actually admitted this as well? That everything AI is being fed to be so-called trained is actually copyrighted material without permission. So
Wow.
no one, whoever has their work copyrighted, there is no permission at all to use their work. And so anything you have on the internet is being used regardless, whether it's photos from your past, let's say photos of your kids, anything, without your permission, they are using it to feed AI. And I don't think people even realize that as well.
That's so scary, to be honest. Like, I just don't even want to imagine what, like perverts and other criminals, what they could do with other people's pictures and information, you know? It's just
Definitely,
horrifying.
yes. Yeah, I agree, definitely, because there is more cases now where um child pornography is actually increasing a lot more because of AI. We saw a few years ago this software which allowed people to see through your clothes. So now, if you think
So,
about it, AI
what?
is just giving it
I'm,
more of
I'm
a
sorry, what?
advancement now.
I'm sorry, what? See through your clothes? What?
Yes.
No way. No, 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 no way. Really?
Honestly, Swala, if I could, I wish I could say it's alive, but it's not. And we've had already so many hijabi sisters going through this already. It's already a reality. So it's already happening. Subhanallah.
No way. I'm out of words. Like, what? No. Yeah, please go on. I'm sorry. I'm just like, this is the first time I've heard something like that. Like, um,
No,
please
no,
go on. Please
yeah,
go on.
definitely not. Always, honestly, it's something to just let it sink in because we all know the pros of AI. We know that it does actually help with assistance.
Mhm.
It does make workload a lot more easier. It does have a lot of benefits. But we also need to acknowledge the cons. We also need to acknowledge without the guidelines, without things to teach us how to use AI, without these regulations that governments are not currently putting in, and especially AI is being used by companies to basically further their investments. I'm sure you've probably seen it, but a lot of big companies have put so much investment into AI,
Mm-hmm.
but because there's no regulations, because it was something that was so hyped, you realize now a lot of them wasted a lot of money and a lot of these cases, subhanAllah. So basically, it was something hyped so much. And so, because it was something, I'd say within 2 years, it just suddenly shot up. The advancement, everything just suddenly just became so much compared to the years before, like let's say 2014 the only thing that they could manage to generate, let's say an image,
Mm-hmm.
would be a person, but it'd be extremely blurry. You can't even tell the details, not even the face. But now imagine from the point of 2024,
Mm-hmm.
everything completely changed. And imagine when people are still trying to adjust to this new advancement,
Mm-hmm.
it is very difficult. So some people who will immediately jump into the hype, they will use it however they think is okay because they're experimenting without even realize, wait, is this actually legal? Is it illegal? None of these come into concern when it comes to the safety risks, ethical issues, because there is also a concern with the data centers taking up a natural resource, which is water. So people in those areas are also their resource of water is been taken away from them, so they can't even use their bathroom, they can't even use the sink. They'll open the tap fully, and there's hardly any water coming out. So it's affecting people, and a lot of ways, subhanallah. And it is another issue in itself that, yes, as I was saying, it's got its pros, but we need to acknowledge, is using AI really permissible in a lot of ways? I
Mm.
don't really mention this much. I don't really say whether AI is haram or halal. That's not my specialty or what I can say about it. But I can mention of, is there enough fatwas to mention how we should be using AI? What is actually permissible? Because AI is also something which is deceptive. It is, it can lie. It's capable of lying. All of these things, subhanallah.
Toiba,
So I find it an issue in
you
itself.
sorry, you were saying?
No, no, it's fine. I was gonna stop
I'm
there.
It's fine. I was just going to say that I'm really glad that you brought that up because, like, yes, I do believe that AI can come in handy, but it has so many cons, and there needs to be guidelines when it comes to how to use it, when to use it, etc. Like, there needs to be boundaries, obviously, because not everyone should use it, if you know what I mean. And it's very easy to get carried away with using it, and like you mentioned earlier, like many people are unfortunately using it for very wrong reasons. One of the reasons why I'm personally against using AI too much is because it makes a person dumber. And there's actually research on this, and what those researchers found was disheartening, to be frank. They said, and I quote what they said. So they said AI tools appear to reduce the perceived effort required for critical thinking tasks among knowledge workers, especially when they have higher confidence in AI capabilities. However, workers who are confident in their own skills tend to perceive greater effort in these tasks, particularly when evaluating and applying AI responses, end quote. To me, this is a very serious matter because if our critical thinking I'm sorry, if our critical thinking skills becomes poor or developed, then this would obviously affect the way that we make decisions, solve problems, and even learn. It would become easier for other people to have an influence on us, to take control of us, and yeah. So, what do you think about this? Do you agree, disagree? What are your thoughts?
So I honestly completely agree with you there because you also reminded me of something which is going on in social media.
Mm-hmm.
It's called the AI slop.
Mm-hmm.
So it is images which is or even videos which are generated of a lot of cases. I'd say the most popular one is cats,
Mm-hmm.
but there is literally a whole story being told, and there is no filter on these. So kids, probably under 14, 12 years old, are watching these. Even kids, toddlers, are watching these videos and they make no sense. Like, for example, one of them is they're homeless. Let's say there's a guy is homeless,
Mm-hmm.
and then they get married, they get abused, they give birth, and it's this cycle of strange stories and weird things that are going on in these videos. And like you said, it's kind of stopping people from using their own intellect and a lot of things. And imagine now a lot of this brain rot, which is being put into the children's minds, remember, because the development of children
Mm-hmm.
is the critical time that kids are growing. And
Mm-hmm.
imagining from a young age, they are being fed these disastrous videos which don't even make sense.
Mm-hmm.
You can imagine the development of these children as they get older. So it is a scary thing, but also something to be mindful about how you're using the internet, how you're using AI, and what are you allowing for your children to watch and yourself as well. Because let's say because as well, because of the AI stuff and all of these things, it is something which is I think it's 37% on algorithms now. So they're kind of trying to push it onto every single account which is on social media now. So anything that you see on your algorithm, we know how extremely powerful it is. So there is a few platforms. There's YouTube, Instagram, a few of these,
Mm-hmm.
and they've decided to push it 30% more now compared to before, meaning they want you to see that thing because it is going to give them money. It is something that is going to increase um the money for them to come in. So it doesn't matter whether it's beneficial to you or not. it is happening regardless. And because of that as well, you probably might have seen in some of the videos, we have AI fake news that look absolutely real. They look very, very real. But there is actually some ways to tell that it is AI at
Mm-hmm.
this current time. But later on, when it does get more advanced, then what we'll have to rely on is critical thinking. And if we don't have critical thinking, then there is no way that you're going to be able to tell reality from, falsehood. So subhanallah, I definitely completely agree with you on that stance.
Yeah, and after what you told me, I do believe that there's an agenda behind this. I don't believe that this is being done randomly. Like, there is a purpose. There's a reason why, like, they keep pushing they keep pushing all this to us, you know? And another thing that came in that I was thinking about whilst you were mentioning all of that was that even teenagers, they also have to be really careful when it comes to AI because like their brains like like when they begin puberty, their brains begin undergoing very significant changes and their brains haven't fully developed. So so that's a reason why they tend to make bad decisions, engage in risky behaviors, and so on. So, like they too lack critical thinking skills, although better than children, obviously, but still, it's not as developed as an adults, right? So teenagers themselves, they also need to be careful, especially when they're on social media, because on these online platforms, it's so easy for someone to gain access to all this AI nonsense. You get me?
Yes, definitely. I think there is a few countries at the moment that have restricted AI for to a certain age, which is actually really good, but it's
Yeah.
not applied to every single country.
Mm.
Like let's say in England, what has happened is there was actually a suicide because of ChatGPT. I think it was in a 14-year-old that basically was speaking to ChatGPT,
Mm-hmm.
and I guess it was he was looking for advice because he was depressed and all of these things.
Mm-hmm.
And what AI basically does, it kind of feeds into your own delusions. So it's called like a delusional reality.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of actually helping the boy, it kind of built on that delusion of what was happening to that boy and intensifying it. And as you said, teens, they're still going through that process of understanding themselves. And imagine that now this chat GBT is telling him and comforting him that, yeah, it's okay to feel this way. Maybe I can give you some suggestions of doing this and that. And it actually, to be honest, led him to suicide, meaning it kind of suggested to him that maybe his life was useless. I'm not really sure of the details, but either way, the parents of that boy found out the cause, they saw the conversations, and it is extremely dangerous, especially when there's no regulations, no nothing for these, especially for the young people as well, and the young children as well. And we have already seeing it come in, and we're already seeing how it's affecting the youth. Forget about the adults, but it's definitely affecting the youth. And now it's a big concern now. After how many years now have we had AI? To be honest, quite a while now, and yet it is only being brought up as an issue now because it's got to the point of severity. So, subhanAllah, it's sad to see it in that case as well.
I have a question for you. Let's say you have kids, inshallah. Would you allow them to have social media or use technology when they're little? Would you allow them or would you forbid them?
So, for me, um, I'd say in my case, I never actually got the phone until I was 17 years old,
Mm-hmm.
but I did have access to social media before that, and I feel rather too young. So, for me personally, Um, I wouldn't give my child a phone, social media, anything before 14 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Because anything before that, I have to make sure that the kids, wherever I'm teaching the kids, is protecting them before they get introduced to it. So at least they have some guidelines. And then once I do introduce my kids to Inshallah khair, once I have them, of course. But once I introduce it to them, then I have to teach them about regulations because I feel like either way, the next generation to come after ours is going to be built on this new technology and there's no way to avoid it. So
Mm-hmm.
instead of kind of taking them fully away from it and making them completely blind to it, that afterwards they're just thrown into it without anything to understand it. I feel like what we need to do is we need to make sure we're educated so that we can educate the next generation. That is the most important thing. So it's not ignorance, but rather being taught using knowledge to understand how can we combat things, how can we use it in the correct way, and all of these things. That's it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you raised very good points. And even myself, my mom my mom forbade me from having a phone until after I turned 16, and Alhamdulillah, that was actually a really good decision. But I also used social media when I started using it when I was 11, and looking back right now, and if I have a child or children, inshallah, I will not allow them to use social media until they turn 16, because yeah, social media, it does have its advantages, but to me personally, I think the cons outweigh the pros, you know? Like, it's not like I wouldn't deprive them of technology completely, but obviously there has to be boundaries, and there has to be education about why they should use it and why they should not use it, etc. But it's a scary thing, honestly. Like I just don't want to I just can't imagine my future children, like when they're like as small as 13 to 14 years old, and them being indulged in social media, and them developing mental illnesses after using it so much. It's just horrifying. I don't want to think about it. Like, I'd wait until they grow a bit older. That's when they can use it if they want to, but not when they're really young, like when they're children or 13, 14, 15. No, no, I wouldn't allow that.
It's definitely valid, definitely. Because I feel like this is something I've noticed. I don't really have anything to back it up, but I have noticed that as the generations go on, the younger, like for example, the older generation, they were a lot more mature from a younger age. And then I feel like as there's more generations, there's more children coming, I feel like that is kind of um changing. So meaning the maturity, it's probably, I feel like it's after kind of 16 years old at this point. I feel like a little bit older, to be honest. I do feel like that's what's happening. Like the level of maturity is not at that certain age. Let's say our parents, their maturity was probably at 12, to be honest. Who knows? For example, my maturity, I remember the time that I actually matured properly was when I was 17 to 18. And
Mm-hmm.
now can you imagine probably next generation as well? And I feel like it is something that we need to kind of adapt with as well, like because not every generation is the same. So if you try to use the same tech, like the same methods as the way that you were raised up. Sometimes it can be good, sometimes it can be bad, but it's still something of a learning process that you see how is this next generation being brought up? What is the situation that's happening? What is the biggest issue that's happening? And like you said as well, the mental health. So how can I avoid that and make sure I'm also present in their life? So let's say I have to, like, there's no choice, but I have to allow them onto the internet and all these things because sometimes we don't have a choice in that regard because there is some countries, I think the US, that are saying that they want to implement AI into schools, or meaning giving them a wider access to all of these things. So sometimes we can't really avoid it, but instead we can address it and make sure that this child at home is safe and they're able to communicate things. Because I feel like no matter where we're at, if there's not safety in the home, then that child will definitely most likely will get into these things and probably the wrong side of the internet and social media. But if there's safety at home, if there's communication, then it's easy to see what that child's going through and be able to see what you can do about it. But if the child doesn't trust you, they don't feel safe with you, then how can you find out what's actually going on? Because there is a lot of teens that they don't feel safe at home, and because of that they don't feel safe with their parents to communicate what's going on. And so
Mm.
maybe afterwards the parents find out and they realize all of this was going on without a knowledge. Why did our child not speak to us? Because the child didn't feel safe.
I do agree with what you said, Taiba, and you raise very good points. I would not want my child, inshallah, to spend his or her entire day just looking at an iPad and just saying whatever. And like, even though the internet has good stuff, it's also filled with very like disturbing and inappropriate content, and I would not want my children to get access to those. But unfortunately, they're just so easily available these days, and this is one fear which I think every single parent today they have to be mindful of. And honestly, like I'm not a huge fan of parents letting their children use phones or iPads from such a young age, like as a way to distract them. This is something which I don't support because of the danger that I mentioned, and there are alternatives to keep the child busy, such as independent play, working on, I don't know, like puzzle books and so on. Like there are other ways for our children to keep themselves busy and to have fun at the same time. Like, the iPad shouldn't be the ultimate solution, you know?
Definitely. And bringing that up now, when I think about it, as AI advances, there is, even technology which they are kind of implementing into children's toys and all of these things now. And meaning even the youngest of kids, even toddlers, newborns, infants are not going to be safe from it. They're not going to be protected from it. So they are trying to kind of sneak into all of these things and subhanAllah, trying to take over these things. And when you mention it that way as well, that to be away from these devices, how many of these kids are actually outside these days? So subhanallah, it shows that I guess it is a majority of kids now are on their devices, and like you said, they're not being protected from any of the things that come up. And relaying back to AI now, any of their photos, anything that's basically that they use on AI or basically on the internet can be basically be used, subhanAllah, and people could probably use AI in order to fake an identity and subhanAllah, there is a lot of grooming which happens on the internet, so any case can happen now, especially with the AI now, because now all of these people, these bad people who are on the internet trying to connect with these kids, all of these things, because of AI now, they can probably use it now in a more of an advanced way to look like, maybe even sound like a child, and to get this kid, these children to trust them. So it is really concerning, and like you said, we need to also stay in the reality as well. Because if kids are constantly cooped up, then it's definitely gonna affect their mental health, and it's gonna affect their reality of what is actually going on in the world. Because
Mm,
if you're always on the device, they're always seeing a certain perspective, or they're always seeing something, and it's completely different from reality. And even when it comes to kids shows, all of these things, have you noticed that it's changed? I
mm,
feel like there's a lot of promoting even LGBTQ, all of these things now. It is a lot more worse than before, even when it comes to the colors of
mm,
the videos. Like, it's just way too bright. Like, I find it way too bright for my eyes. And yet, I see my niece watching them and so captivated by them. And, it's really sad because she is learning a lot. But
mm.
when it comes to communicating with others, forming relationships, she can't do that. She's That kind of side of it has been taken away from her, even though she's learned a lot. So you do have to see both sides of it.
Toiba, I'm so glad that I had this conversation with you. It was a much needed discussion. And I think that's all for today. Thank you again for taking part in my podcast. And this was a very important discussion, and I really hope that other people can benefit from this as well, inshallah. And I hope the rest of your day goes well. Thank you and take care.